Hello, welcome. I believe we are live on our Blind Love Relationships and Dating series. Welcome everyone, and happy almost Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer is starting actually tonight and tomorrow. I want to thank Erez Cohen for an amazing pre-Lag BaOmer concert, other Lag BaOmer concerts going on that we just advertised today in our email. Welcome Rabbi Ezra, welcome Tanya, welcome Ezra again, Jasmine Lee. Pleasure to have all you guys. Scott Shapiro is in the house. We're gonna have an awesome, intimate conversation about relationships and dating. Liesel, pleasure to have you with us, Liesel, as always. And what a great crowd coming online. Welcome everyone. It was actually strange weather today, was it not? I've got my mask. I don't need to put on the mask for class tonight because I'm speaking into a computer, but I went running in Central Park just before, had the mask on, people were social distancing, and then it started to pour. But it was a beautiful run while it lasted. I want to welcome everyone that are just coming on. Jasmine Lee, welcome. Julie Gordon, how are you, Julie? What an honor and pleasure. Nati Harsinai and Liesel, I mentioned before. Everyone else that's come on, what an honor and pleasure to have you all here. Thank you for coming. And I'm going to try to share some insights with you on our topic, Blind Love and Dating and Relationship series. Tonight, I'm going to give you some wisdom and insights into dating and into relationship building from a Torah perspective. And next week, I'm going to be interviewing a dating expert. I want to welcome Maya and thank, hey Julie, and welcome and thank Maya for all of her help in putting this together. Maya just came on. So I want to begin our discussion on relationships and dating with a quote from one of the modern day icons in relationships and dating. Now, when I say a modern day icon, everything is a little old because when I was dating, Jerry Seinfeld was the guy. Seinfeld was the person you went to for wisdom when it came to dating, basically what not to do when you date. But Jerry Seinfeld, in one of his great monologues, said the following. He says, "Why is commitment such a big problem for a man? I think that for some reason when a man is driving down that freeway of love, the woman he's with is like an exit. But he doesn't want to get off right there. He just wants to keep on driving. And the woman is like, look, gas, food, lodging, that's our exit. That's everything we need to be happy. Get off here, get off now." And the man is focusing on the sign underneath that says next exit 27 miles. And he thinks, I can make it. Sometimes he can, sometimes he can't. Sometimes the car ends up on the side of the road, the hood is up, smoke is pouring out of the engine, and the guy's sitting there on the curb all alone, mumbling to himself, guess I didn't realize how many miles I was racking up. I love that monologue. And that image of driving and driving and driving and never wanting to get off is a very telling image in our contemporary society. Now, with Corona, dating and courtship has really been put on hold for a lot of people. Wow, what a great group of people we have on here. Welcome, everyone. And hey, Michelle Rechenberg, what an honor. Abigail Briskin, I want to welcome you. Larry Schneier, and everyone else has been on already. Hey, we're up to 40 people. Awesome, man. This is great. 41. Thank you all for joining. So anyway, there was an article in the New York Times a number of years ago which discussed the current dating scene in New York City. Now, when I say current, I mean pre-corona current. And the article talked about how many people in their 20s and 30s were looking for real relationships, not just one-night stands. On the other hand, a lot of young people in general today really want their independence and want to be able to not have to settle down or commit to one person on a permanent basis. And the question is, what is Judaism's take on this? Can we have our cake and eat it too, if you will? Can we have that independence and that, not being sort of bogged down in a relationship that is stifling us, if you will, on one hand, But on the other hand, can we get that great feeling that you can only get from being in a committed relationship? Hey, Michelle. Welcome, Joseph, as well. So what's Judaism's take on this? So to answer this question, I want to look at the very first relationship ever in the Torah. Well, welcome, Deborah. First relationship in the Torah, of course, between Adam and Eve. And it's interesting because in chapter 1 of Genesis, hang on one second, I just got to get a little quiet in my home. I'm sorry. Apologize. So, chapter 1. Hey, Ethan Root, what a pleasure. Stephanie Brooke. Hey, no, you can't. All right, Stephanie has just ended the class. She has just answered the question, can you have your cake and eat it too? Okay, Stephanie, you can't. Fine. All right, we're done. Thank you all for joining. Happy Lag BaOmer and good luck dating. I'm just kidding. Harry Resnick, welcome to you as well. So to answer this question, I want to look at the first relationship. Now, there are 4 differences between the way Adam and Eve's creation is described in chapter 1 of the book of Genesis and the way Adam and Eve's creation is described in chapter 2. Welcome, my friend Sam Bodenheimer. What an honor and pleasure to have you with us. In chapter 1, Adam and Eve are created together. The Torah says explicitly, Zachar u'nekeva bara'otam, male and female, he created them. And it's kind of interesting because in chapter 2, the way the Bible, the way the Torah describes Adam and Eve's creation is that they're created separately. So, which is it? Bodhi, it's an honor to have you, man. Was Adam and Eve created together as one unit, or were they created separately? And the Torah says both. And we're going to come back to that in a minute. There's another difference between the way Adam and Eve were created according to the Torah, and that is they were given different tasks and different jobs. Adam in chapter 1 is told one word, vikivshuha, conquer the world, harness the forces of nature, create cure for disease, try to build hospitals. I want you to partner with me, God tells Adam in chapter 1, to make the world a better place. What does God tell Adam in chapter 2 in relation to the world? Chill out. Le'avda u'lishamra. Guard it, watch it, and guard it. Welcome, everyone. Such a pleasure to have everyone with us. I think I just saw Allison's name pop up as well. I want to thank Allison Reich Wolf, for all of her amazing teaching and inspiration at MGE, and Rabbi Ezra. I'm always thanking Rabbi Ezra, but you can never thank the man enough. You can't. It's just never good enough. No, I didn't mean it that way. So Adam 1 is told to conquer the world. Adam in chapter 2 is told Avdal Shamra, to cultivate, to watch it. Adam 1 in chapter 1 is sort of like the yuppie, trying to, change everything and control things. Adam in chapter 2 is sort of the environmentalist, maybe the hippie, the guy who's chilling out and just sort of being together with the rest of the universe. So the question is, who was the real Adam and who's the real Eve? And of course the answer is both. Rabbi Soloveitchik, in one of the greatest books ever written, ever, I know, that's a very dramatic statement, but I believe it's true, The Lonely Man of Faith, he explains the differences. And I'm going to come back and answer our original question. What do we need to build healthy relationships? And what I want to tackle tonight is not just finding the right person, but we know that there's another struggle so many people have today. Welcome, Jason Tobias. And that is not simply finding the right person, it's keeping the right person. We know that more than half of marriages today are ending in divorce. So what is the Torah's recipe, not only to find the right person to begin with, but to do it in such a way as to make the relationship stick and last? Le'olam va'ed, as they say, forever and ever. So Adam, we said before, is created together with Eve in chapter 1. Rabbi Soloveitchik puts that together with Adam's job. What was Adam told by God in chapter 1? What's his relationship with the rest of the world? Vikiv shuha, conquer the forces of nature. I want you to make this place, this imperfect world that God created. God says to Adam, I want you to make it better. Vikiv shuha. Good. And it's interesting, Rav Soloveitchik in that chapter says that a person who can conquer space is someone who is living a dignified life, but someone who is succumbing to disease, who cannot board a plane in the morning and end up at another part of the world in the afternoon, is being controlled but not taking control. And in chapter 1, God tells Adam, I want you to take control of your life. I want you to make this world a better place. And interestingly, Rabbi Soloveitchik points out, that's the same Adam was created together with Eve. The Adam in chapter 2, who's created apart from Eve, he is told not to control the world. He is told to just watch. So what's the relationship between being created together with Eve and being told to conquer the forces of nature? So Rabbi Soloveitchik says that since Adam in chapter 1 is focused exclusively on trying to tackle the environment, that's why he's created together with Eve, simply because he needs her. He needs her. 2 hands are better than 1. That's why people enter into partnerships. You have to split all the profits, obviously. But it's worth it if you can do so much more with a partner than you can do yourself. And this is really the nature of Adam and Eve's relationship as described in chapter 1. It's practical. It's utilitarian. Adam and Eve satisfies each other's practical needs, but they're not bound to each other emotionally. And Rav Soloveitchik writes that we all know relationships like this. People who work well together, they produce well together, but they do not connect on a deep metaphysical level, and therefore the relationship never becomes holy. They never become bound to each other in a deep metaphysical sense because they're basically just using each other. And by the way, that's okay in terms of the way God created Adam in chapter 1, because that's the way God wanted Adam. God wanted Adam to make the world a better place. He gave him Eve so they could work together to do that. But they don't really love each other. They're not really devoted to each other. Sorry about that. My phone just rang. Now, without sounding too cynical, I think this is a very familiar kind of attitude when it comes to dating and relationships in our society. You see, Adam is created with the drive and with the need to dominate the environment. And for that, he needs Eve. We too have basic human needs, right? And we go out and we date. We have a need for companionship. We have a need to feel secure. We have a need to feel supported in whatever we do professionally. We have a need for physical intimacy. We have a need to have children to pass on our legacy. These are all legitimate needs, wants, and desires. And what do we do to satisfy and to fulfill those needs? Welcome, Dr. Poppers. We date, and we look for a partner who can satisfy as many of those needs as possible. Sounds simple and harmless. The only problem is, if it's all about fulfilling our needs, it's never going to happen because it's simply impossible, this is me speaking now, to find one person who has so much of what we need. And that is a very, very complicated thing. Maybe I can find someone to whom I'm physically attracted, but intellectually, Maybe I can find someone who I think will one day be a good parent to my children. They have good values. But she doesn't make me laugh. Maybe one person does this but doesn't have that. Finding one person that can fulfill all of our needs is just simply unrealistic. And as I'm sure many of us can attest here, as we get a little older, the list continues to grow. Because as we grow, we change. And as we change, we evolve and we develop and our needs become different. Okay, David Poppers, who's a happily married man, is sharing some wisdom. Karen and I are available for guidance. Learn from our dating mistakes. Okay, and you can learn from my marriage mistakes because we all make them. And the goal here, and I appreciate you sharing this, Dr. David, the goal here is not perfection. It doesn't exist. It certainly doesn't exist in relationships. The goal, though, is to see what is the most important thing that we should be looking for. And once we have it, how do we develop it in such a way so it can stand the test of time? So going back to the point I'm just trying to make, finding one person with all these things is just unrealistic. And as I say, the list keeps growing. But that doesn't mean we just throw out the list altogether. What it could mean, though, is that we trim it down and we leave ourselves with the most important things that we think are not subject to change. Because every 5 years, this is my theory, every 5 years we change. Michael Chadwick, what an honor to have you with us. What a beautiful group of students, participants. Thank you all for being here. We change every 5 years. So what are we going to do? Keep changing the list? No, pick 3 things that you think are constants in your life. I'll make a recommendation. One of those things should be shared values. The shared basic values that you think you always want to have. Now, I know you can't always predict those things could change too. So you got to obviously go with what you're experiencing now. Good midot, good character traits, a kind person. I gave a whole class this afternoon at the lunch and learn about kindness. A kind and giving personality, that's one thing I think you want to look for. The second thing you want to have is physical attraction. That doesn't necessarily mean sexual compatibility. We'll talk about that another time. We have our class in sexuality. Judaism believes in being physically attracted to the person and knowing that before you get married, but not necessarily the sex is supposed to come later as a way of building the relationship, not as a gauge to determine whether this is the right person or not. Physical attraction, yes. Sexual intimacy, we believe, comes later to build the relationship, not to determine if it is the right one. But physical attraction is one of those things. The second thing is good midot, good personality, and traits for you, and I would emphasize kindness. And the third thing is shared values. That's when it comes in, you want to marry someone, date someone who's only Jewish, and someone who wants to build a Jewish home, and so on and so forth. And I would recommend leaving those things on the list, but really keeping it to those things. Now, they tell the story of a man who complains. Stephanie, yes, shared values. I appreciate that. They tell the story of a man who complains of chest pains. So he goes with his wife to see the doctor. Stephanie, you'll appreciate this joke. So the doctor gives the husband an extensive examination, asks him to step out of the room so he can speak with the man's wife alone. And the doctor tells the wife, I examined your husband. He has a very serious stress disorder, and I need you to do the following things for him, who he's going to be dead in 3 months. Every morning, you need to make him a nice hot breakfast and give him a nice, relaxing massage. Please make sure you make him whatever he likes, also for both lunch and dinner, and then another massage in the evening. And by no means can you ever nag him. Can you ever raise your voice in his presence? That's what your husband needs to live. The woman nods very politely, and she leaves the room. Her husband is waiting anxiously in the waiting room and says, so, what does the doctor say? And the wife turns to her husband. He says, you have 3 months to live. Is everybody laughing? That's funny. I think it's funny. Anyway, there's actually a serious part to this joke, and that is fulfilling our partner's needs is obviously important. But a relationship which is only based on getting our needs fulfilled is just not realistic. But there's a much deeper issue, and that is this needs-oriented approach. I have need A, I have need B, I have need A, so I'm going to go date and find someone who fulfills as many of these needs as possible. It's not only unrealistic, because looks, intellect, sense of humor, all that stuff, how are you going to find it all in one person? They're all surface needs. The deepest and the most pressing need, which is the need to feel understood and accepted, may still not be met, even if one finds someone that has you can put a big check next to all those other needs. And to understand this need, which is the need to feel understood, to comprehend the basic human need to be understood, we have to go past the way the Bible, the way the Torah describes Adam in chapter 1. We have to go to the way the Torah describes Adam in chapter 2. Because in chapter 2, Adam and Eve are not created together. Adam and Eve in chapter 2 are not just using each other. Adam is all alone. And only later does Eve emerge and come into the world. Adam exists all alone until the Torah finally says it's not good, lo tov liot adam levado. It's not good for man to be alone. Esel lo ezer kenegdo. I will make for him a helpmate. And Rabbi Soloveitchik explains, since this Adam, the Adam in chapter 2, was created all alone, quote, with no companion with whom to communicate, right? He was completely quarantined. He therefore became existentially insecure. He has no other counterpart in the entire universe that's like him, that understands him, so he feels completely distinct and alone. And by the way, how interesting is this? It's in this state, before Eve comes into the picture, that God tells Adam to name all of the animals. It's a weird kind of science project that God gives Adam, name the animals. That process, says Rabbi Soloveitchik, of naming the animals is ultimately what caused Adam to feel even more alone. Because to feel lonely, he says, is the awareness of your exclusiveness and of your uniqueness. And it's very different than being alone. You see, many of us are alone during this period of time. But that doesn't mean we're lonely. There's a very big difference. You know, you can be in Madison Square Garden sitting with 20,000 fans. Can't even imagine that now. And you're at a rock concert. I love Billy Joel, so imagine myself sitting at a Billy Joel concert. I went actually to Barclays probably about a year ago. I saw Paul McCartney. Many of you know I'm obsessed with Beatles, and Paul McCartney was performing at Barclays. It was amazing. It was packed. So you're not going to feel alone. You might feel alone in your apartment now if you're alone, but you can still be lonely if no one else in that whole stadium or in the world is similar to you or somehow understands you. Adam realized that there was no other being in the world that was like him, that could relate to him. And naming the animals only made him feel more alone. Naming the animals for Adam was like going on a bad date, so to speak. Right? You already haven't met the right person. Then you go on a date and you feel like, oh my God, this person really doesn't get me. And that's the feeling, says Rav, simply by virtue of being a unique human being distinct from all other people. And that's why the only way of at least partially defeating the existential loneliness that all of us are plagued with just by our very nature is by being with someone who understands you. By being in a relationship who gets you and, more importantly, accepts you for who you are. But that, of course, can only happen if you reveal yourself to the other person. Because how's someone going to really know who you really are so they can accept you the way you are if you don't show them who you really are? And that explains the symbolism of Adam and Eve being naked in the Garden of Eden, the idea that they had totally exposed themselves to each other, which is why this kind of relationship that I'm describing now, of being understood by someone else, cannot, by definition, in my opinion, happen before marriage. It can't. Because you need a safe zone. You need to feel confident opening yourself up to another person. And who in their right mind is going to open themselves up to another person if they feel that that person can walk out the door in 10 minutes or in a day? Now, I know what you're thinking. Two people get divorced. Two people are married, they get divorced. They can leave also, of course. But I always say that if you can dissolve a relationship without having to call a lawyer or a rabbi, and you don't have documents, then you're not really in a fully committed relationship. You might think you are, but if the person can just have enough and just walk out, then you haven't created enough of a safe zone to be able to reveal who you truly are. That's emotional suicide. Who's going to want to do that? Who's going to want to truly open up to who they are, right, Stephanie? No one in their right mind, exactly. That was weird. It just almost turned us off. Okay, I think I just blew everyone's, the Facebook page. No, we're back. So this is very important. This is the reason why Judaism promotes marriage so much. Because marriage sets up the highest possible of commitment within which people can feel comfortable sharing and revealing their true selves. And I'm not saying it's perfect, it's not. Plenty of people get divorced. But it's still a zone that you can feel comfortable revealing yourself. And that's what explains the biblical term for sexual intimacy is knowledge. V'ha'adam yada et chava ishto. And Adam knew his wife. Or Adam knew Chava. Right? And she conceived. Because sex is the ultimate way of knowing another person after one has fully exposed and reveal themselves within a safe environment we call marriage, where one can feel comfortable revealing more and more and more. Otherwise, we are forced to hide our true selves from everyone in the world, and our existential loneliness prevails. Now, here's some good news. I want to welcome my brother who's watching. The good news, none of this has to be developed before we are married. Our contemporary society has so convinced us that we have to have whatever it is that marriage brings in the relationship before the marriage even starts. But that's just backwards. That's what the marriage is itself. The marriage are the years we spend giving each other the comfort zone to open up. What we do before marriage is just to see if this is the person I want to open up to. Is this the person that I want to be with, that I want to spend the rest of my life revealing different aspects of who I am? And is this the person I want to get to know more and more and more? But I don't have to have all of that before marriage. The only thing we really need to have before marriage is a desire to open ourselves up to that other person. Do I want this other person to know me, and do I truly desire to know them? But I don't need to find out every little thing. Do they squeeze the toothpaste? Do they roll the toothpaste? Do they this? Do they that? I remember when my wife, Jill, and I were engaged, and a couple of Jill's friends took her out for dinner, like real dear friends of hers that she grew up with. And they said, look, we know my wife, Jill, had become religious around that period of time, a couple of years earlier. And he said, look, we know you're marrying this crazy rabbi guy, and we know you become religious, and we get that. But like, don't you think you need to first move in before you want to make this decision? Don't you really want to be sure? Don't you want to be certain? And let me just tell you something. This is very, very important. Number one, the statistics bear this out, that it does not help. The idea that we will have this perfect, full certainty before we get married is just an illusion. Now, I'm not saying we just close our eyes and imagine, and just like pray it works, right? Obviously, you try to find someone that has those few things we discussed before and have a proper courtship, yada, yada. But then you have to have some faith. You know that the rates of divorce are higher amongst couples that actually lived with each other before they got married. So the idea is that you're going to check everything out. We're going to do a trial run, right? I need to take the car out for a little before I buy the car. Make sure it's not a lemon. Okay, that's basically what people are saying. How could you marry without moving in? Rav Soloveitchik actually was the same rabbi who wrote this book. So he was Masader Kedushin. He was the officiating rabbi at a dear friend of my wedding. Josh Lamb told me this. Fortunately, just paid a shiva call to Josh Lamb. He lost his beloved mother, Mrs. Mindy Lamb, who was a great leader and matriarch in our community in the Upper West Side. Rabbi Dr. Norman Lamb's wife passed. And I remember Josh years ago told me this story. He's been married for many years. And he said, right before he was about to walk down the aisle, Rabbi Soloveitchik, who was the officiant, took him aside. And he said to him, Josh, are you sure? Now, that is not a smart question to ask a groom right before he's about to walk down the aisle. Are you sure? So he didn't answer. He didn't know what to answer in response. A lot of people were intimidated by the great intellect of Rav Soloveitchik, so he just sort of froze and stood there. And Rav Soloveitchik answered the following, and he said, good, only a fool could be sure. Now, what does that mean, only a fool could be sure? Jill hates that story. It just sounds so not romantic. And you should know Rabbi Soloveitchik had a beautiful, very, very loving relationship with his wife. He spoke about it and he wrote about it often. And when she died, he was never the same. But the idea that we could be certain and sure, and what we have to try to do is try to figure something out. Is this the person I want to give to? Is this the person I want to receive giving from? But that's the catch-22. Well, a single woman once expressed this to me. She said, Rabbi, if I'm not married, and therefore I'm not in that safe zone, then by definition I'm going to be reluctant to open up. But if I don't do that, then my ability to bond and connect with that other person is limited. What do I do? Catch-22. And I've always told people that in dating you have to do a little opening up, but not too much. Some revealing of our inner selves to create a connection, to feel some chemistry. But the ultimate revelation, the ultimate exposure, which truly helps us feel understood and ultimately accepted on a deep metaphysical level, is reserved for the years of marriage. where we spend the remainder of our lives revealing a little more, a little more, and a little more. And so my greatest advice is to try to find someone you feel is beginning to understand you, and you have a desire to get to know on a much deeper level, and then go out and buy a ring and propose. And guess what? I know what many of you are thinking. I can't do this now. Corona, and I get it. It's a very difficult time. But I've been talking to some people who have been Zoom dating. Or if you met the person beforehand, you can continue. It's easier. But even first dates on Zoom. Hey, gets rid of all the Me Too issues. It's cheap. You can just bring a glass of wine to the date, you in your living room and the other person in their living room. I know it sounds very artificial. I know it's weird. If you're not comfortable, okay, please God, this will be over soon. But to feel a sense of understanding and not to have to expect so much more. There is a list I mentioned before: shared values, physical attraction, and looking for someone who's kind and giving as much as possible. But don't keep on feeling that you have to get to know the person so much more, reveal more, learn every single nuance about your partner, that they have to know everything about you. That's what you have the rest of your life for. That's what the marriage is about. Love, which according to Jewish thought is based on giving. Ahava is the Hebrew word for love, rooted in the Hebrew word, the two letters, hey, bet, hav, which means to give. Giving develops as a result of trying to know the other and to do for the other, and ultimately to feel for the other. Famous story is told of the tzaddik of Yerushalayim, the famous Rabbi Aryeh Levine, who goes with his wife to the doctor. She was complaining of severe pain in her leg, and they're in the doctor's office, and the doctor asks the rabbi, what's the matter? And famously he answers, our leg hurts. Our leg hurts. That's love. Love is when you're starting to feel the pain and the joy of the person to whom you are connected. And that only happens through giving. And that's why my mother of blessed memory, I don't know if my brother's still listening, but I'm sure he will remember. My mother always used to say that I loved your father before we got married, but the real love, Mark, she used to say, the real love comes after marriage, because that's when the real giving starts. It's very hard to give. And by the way, a little suggestion when you go on dates, try to give a little, because that's what makes us feel connected to other people when we sacrifice, when we give something up for someone else. And that's challenging when we date, because we're just sort of looking at the person. It's kind of like a job interview. Do you have this for me? Do you have that for me? I need A, B, and C. She's only got D and F. Let's see if we can compromise. Let's see if we can negotiate this. No, ask yourself, do I want to give to this person? How much do I want to give to this person? Because the more you want to give them, the more connected you're going to be. And the more connected you are, the more you're going to give, the deeper the love will be. And it works both ways. And a marriage is doomed to failure when the couple is just sitting there the whole time. I need this from you, you're not giving me this. I need that from you, you're not giving me this. Obviously, we need those things. But the more we can think about how we can do, and I know it's so counterintuitive. Read the first chapter of my book. Liesl just mentioned my book. The first chapter of my book is all about happiness. Happiness does not come from getting, it comes from giving. And I know it makes no sense, because we spend our whole lives trying to get money through this, get that. But what leaves us feeling high on a real content, long-term basis, and not just the circumstantial highs and lows that come from good things or bad things, God forbid, happening to us in our lives, but the real contentment for long-term is coming from giving. Al ken yazov ish et imo ve'et aviv ve'tavak bi'ishto, the Torah says. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother and cleave unto his wife. Ve'hayu lebasar echad, they will be one flesh. They're one. It's our leg. That's love. And that doesn't happen before you get married. You get little glimpses, maybe tiny. That's all you need. And then you have to have some faith in yourself and in your partner that you're going to make it work. I mean, how do they do it in the Hasidic community? They go out on a couple of dates, and all of a sudden, right? Okay, different expectations, and I'm not telling you to blind date for a couple of dates and get married. Okay, I didn't do that. I'm not expecting anyone listening to this to do that either. But there's something about the belief that that world has in marriage, that we're going to make this work, right? And by the way, it's not 100%, and we're taking a chance, but that's life. We're always taking chances. Now, one last point, and that is our society has raised love to such a degree that I think sometimes we just expect too much from it. You know, I hate to say something negative about my favorite band, but all you need is love. John Lennon, Paul McCartney. All you need is love. Bum, ba-da-dum. All you need is love, love. Love is all you need. It's a great song by the greatest band, hands down. But it's misleading. As far as Judaism is concerned, love's important, but it cannot conquer everything. It cannot substitute for other important values, and relationships also need to exist for a more meaningful and happy life. And here's where I just want to make one last point. Having another person who understands us can help, but the only being that truly knows us, that truly gets us, even more than our spouses will ever, is our Creator, God Himself. And that's why Rabbi Soloveitchik writes in his book that Adam and Eve together form a faith community. They connect with each other, but their bond also allows them to connect with something greater than themselves. And I can't tell you how important this is for the marriage. And here's where I'm going to give you the last clinger. I said to you I would try to give some insights into what we should look for, but also what we should do once we're married. Because it doesn't do us any good to get some dating tips if they're going to lead to a marriage that's going to be over in a year or two. The most important thing, I think, in a marriage is not only to make the other person feel understood and heard. And if Rabbi Ezra is listening to this, I know he is. I've been seeing his thumbs up. And I know Rabbi Ezra, he's taught about this, about allowing the other person to feel that they are being heard. Hugely important for communication, which is indispensable for marriage. But the couple also needs to live for something beyond themselves. Love cannot conquer all. All you need is love. Great song, great band. It ain't true. The couple need to create something beyond themselves. Adam and Eve had God that brought them together. God is the being who brings all couples together. But marriage is obviously a way to help address our both most basic physical, emotional, existential needs. But if that's the only purpose in our marriage, if that's the only way that a husband and wife relate to each other as a tool or instrument for the gratification of their needs, then that marriage is, I say, doomed to failure. Husband and wives need to be partner in a mission which is greater than themselves. They have to have a focus on something beyond themselves. The rabbis teach that the Hebrew word for a man is ish, the Hebrew word for a woman is isha. They differ by two letters, the yud and the hey, which spell God's name. If the yud and the hey are missing, this teaches us that if God is in there, if the yud and the hey, God's name is in the ish and isha, if they are living for causes beyond themselves, then the man and the woman can coexist in harmony. But if God is not present, and all they're trying to do is satisfy each other's names, and they're living for nothing higher than love and themselves, and the yud and the hey are disappeared, they're not there, God's not there, there's no yud and hey, what does it spell? Aish, fire. It's an explosion. The man-woman, husband-wife relationship is potentially explosive. We know this. When marriages go bad, they really go bad. But when there's a focus on something higher, when the couple together work to achieve something greater beyond themselves, and that relationship can be the most beautiful thing and lasting thing. It can have perpetuity to it. Nitzchis, as we say in Hebrew. And so when we date, we should also be asking ourselves a question. We said before, is this someone I want to give to? Can I see myself giving to this person? And how can I give to them? And number two, is this someone that I can do something great with for others? Is this someone I can build a home with, to bring children into the world, to raise an amazing Jewish family? Is this a person with whom I can have children, through whom I can transmit my values and traditions to the next generation, so I can leave this world a better place than I found it? And that's why dating Jews or dating others on a similar Jewish path is helpful to be able to accomplish, not just for oneself, but to be able to build our people. What do we wish a couple when they get married? We say Mazel Tov. We also say you should be zoche to build a bayit ne'eman b'Yisrael. What does that mean? Thank you, Stephanie. We really should do that. A bayit ne'eman b'Yisrael, a trustworthy and reliant home for the people of Israel. We're not just building a home for us. We're building a home for the entire Jewish people. That's why the chuppah, I'm going to be doing a wedding on Sunday, please God. I want to wish Noah and Natasha, Noah Orlinger and Natasha, a Mazel Tov, tiny social distance wedding. And we're going to be wishing them that they should be zocha, they should merit to build a bayit ne'eman b'Yisrael, a trustworthy and beautiful home within the nation of Israel, because we believe, and they'll be standing under that chuppah, and the chuppah is open on all sides, because you want them to have a home, but the home should be a place where other people can come after Corona. But other people can come and benefit from the light and the love, because the relationship is not just for the couple, but don't do it for the other people, do it for yourselves. To build our people and to build the world, that's what's going to keep the relationship. That's what's going to keep our marriages vibrant and healthy. Those are my thoughts. And my blessing to each and every one of you is that each and every one of you, all of us, to find that special someone, a person who not only fulfills the needs, but who understands you. So you could feel understood and accepted, and you could prevail over the existential loneliness with which we are all plagued, as Rabbi Soloveitchik explains. And number two, so you can build something greater than yourself. Because the greatest feeling in the world is doing for others. The greatest feeling of the world is that you matter, not just to you and your own needs are fulfilled, but you matter to other people. You know who's feeling amazing about themselves now? Exhausted, scared, and completely wiped out are the healthcare workers here in New York City. But I've spoken to a good number of them feeling so extraordinarily fulfilled because they are devoting their lives to other people. It's the greatest bracha I could give anyone, is that you should be zocha, you should merit, all of us, to dedicate our lives to other people. It's such a pleasure. It brings such joy into our own lives. And it's so counterintuitive. What everyone's telling us is going to make us happy. Feed yourself, give yourself. It's not what does it. That produces a little pleasure, maybe reduces a little stress, and I'm not saying it is important here and there, but that's not what provides long-term happiness and contentment, and that's not what's going to keep our relationships growing and thriving. Let's keep our relationships growing. Let's trying to connect here again. I thank you all for listening. Next week, we're going to be hearing from a relationship coach and expert that I'm going to be interviewing, who is running a dating website, a Jewish dating website, and I invite you to come back next Monday night. What a phenomenal group we've had. Ethan, I want to thank you for your beautiful comments. I'm just looking if there are any, thank you, Devora, any other questions, amazing lecture. Once you find your Beshert soulmate, don't forget to do J-Screen. Excellent point. Oh my God, J-Screen is on here. J-Screen is hugely important, guys. Shout out to the genetic testing that J-Screen does, and make sure when you find that special person, you both get tested. I'm trying to look if there are any other questions or comments. A good relationship should be like a good doubles team, right, Liesel? I love it. Oh, Nathaniel Berman. So Liesel's an amazing tennis player, #1 doubles tennis player in the world. Can't Buy Me Love, Stephanie, another Beatles song. Michael Chadwick, Beyond the Instant. Thank you for posting my book. Look at that. Yeah, I got a lot of this stuff in the book. If anybody wants more of this kind of stuff, it's in the book. I thank you all for participating, for listening, and there's some great Lag BaOmer concerts that are going on. We posted them before, and also want to wish my daughter Abigail a happy birthday. She turned 16, my baby. Sweet 16 today. Happy birthday, Abigail. Thank you, Rabbi Ezra. And just want to thank you all for joining in. And if anybody has any questions, more on the private nature, how do I date during this Corona period of time? I do really encourage people to date. I know it's weird on Zoom, but if you can do it, do it. And if you're having an issue or there's a specific individual, please take this opportunity to reach out to myself, to any of the MG rabbis. Rabbi Ezra's been listening. He's a great dating coach. We've all been through our war stories, and we can tell you at least what not to do sometimes and what we've learned from our own marriages and relationships. Dr. Adina Berkowitz, who's a therapist, also has what to say on this. Rabbi Joshua Klein, Kevin and Allison, just anyone on our staff, if we can follow up and be helpful. Thank you all for joining. Keep staying healthy and safe, social distance. Happy Lag BaOmer, and join us tomorrow. I'll be doing a special lunch and learn about Lag BaOmer and about the great history of this day with Rabbi Akiva and the Bar Kochva revolt and some awesome stuff tomorrow at 12:30. And keep tuning in. We got Rabbi Avi tomorrow night. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Rabbi Ezra. Stephanie, it was great learning with you tonight. And let's keep it up, everyone. Have a great night.